Everybody's very punctual, so I just wanted to take a minute and introduce myself. My name is Stam, and I'm the agricultural UF extension agent to the Seminole tribe. And basically that just means I have responsibility to the Seminole tribe, much like a lot of agents work for a particular county. My office is staged right here in Brighton, and then I handle all the responsibilities of agricultural extension from 4-H to agriculture for all the different reservations for the Seminole tribe. Before we get started this morning, Alex Johns is going to say a couple words in a minute, but I wanted to just tell you just a little unique perspective that I have, that and something that I think that the Florida cattlemen and ranchers have right, that I have failed to see other places. I grew up in Iowa on a dairy farm. We had corn and soybeans, and on the day that my uncle, he'd burn our combine, we had one combine, and I don't know if you've ever seen a combine fire, but when they go big time, and there's not a whole lot left. There's wheels. We thought we were pretty much done. We thought this is going to be the end. By the end of that very same week, our neighbors had our corn and beans picked for us. That not only did we burn our combine to the ground, but then we were the first people to be out for harvest. And shortly thereafter, I went off to college. And from college, I moved around a little bit and ended up in Maine, where I taught agriculture, and was lucky enough to do some commercial fishing while I was in Maine. And one of the things I saw there is that the group of commercial fishermen had such a different perspective on how they worked together, as in they didn't. They protected what they had. I had fellas threaten to sink my boat when I was pulling lobster traps. I had people call me on the radio and tell me that if I didn't move my boat a half mile to the east, they were going to sink it as they came by on a trawl. And I started to think, this is just bizarre to me, that coming from a background of agriculture, where the day we burn our combine, we probably saw every farmer for 30 miles come to our corn and bean field. And then when I came from Maine in the last year and came here, I again have seen a different perspective on how people are going to have to work together. Beef in southern Florida it's going to face a unique set of challenges in the future. Everything from smut grass to Kogan grass to different challenges that have yet to emerge. But the difference that I see from farming and ranching, from that commercial fishing industry, is that the ability and willingness of people to work together. And as I've been here over the last year, I've worked with Alex Johns and talked to him. The idea that this ranching operation and beef cattle production in South Florida, if one rancher is successful but doesn't share that knowledge with his partner down the road, or his competitor down the road, or his friend down the road, he's destined to fail. And I agree with that. The idea that if one person out here is doing it right, that person had better share that information and knowledge, because this industry is tied to itself. And if you've got one rancher that's doing things right, well, we best all get around him and figure out what he's done right. If we've got things that are going wrong, we all ought to learn from that. And I really see that happening here in South Florida, is that there's really been an acknowledgement that we're all going to have to work together for the best of what's going to make this market succeed, not just today, but in the future. And I think that the tribe has positioned itself in a unique way to do a lot of new and innovative things, and is also sharing that information out with others. So I guess today, before I got started, I just wanted to say that from my perspective of being in South Florida for the last year, I've been very impressed the way that ranchers and farmers have worked together to share that knowledge that's going to make them successful over the next 5 to 10 to 20 years. So without a whole lot more of me, I'll go ahead and introduce Alex Johns. He's a natural resource manager for the Seminole tribe, and I'll let him talk.
I'm like Aaron, I don't have a big speech prepared. But I do want to welcome you here to the Brighton Indian Reservation. This is my home here. And like Aaron's saying, if we don't share this information, there's stuff that goes on your ranch you may be successful at dealing with, and we have a problem. We don't know how to deal with it. So these little meetings like this are pretty beneficial for the networking aspect. I want to thank all the university staff for coming out and spending the day with us. I want to thank all y'all for coming. Look forward to hearing the presentations, and hopefully we get a lot of good information out of this. But we only got so much land to deal with, not making any more, so we've got to do more with less every day. And with these invasive species that we fight, it's not like in the days where our grandfathers or great grandfathers were doing a lot for the land and didn't have to fight all these other pests that we deal with now, but it's pretty pricey, you know, and we're losing land to Kogan grass, mutt grass, Brazilian pepper. So we fight it every day. So I'm looking forward to the presentation. I want to thank all y'all for coming out, and I look forward to visiting with y'all. Also, we'll be cooking the hamburgers and steaks for you today, so I'll be in and out. But thank y'all for coming.
And that leads me, we will be serving a hamburger lunch here today. You're going to be given a survey, which is just kind of well, we call it almost a test. It's a pre-knowledge test, but the university, when we have these classes, just has to gather some basic information. And so that little test, that flyer that you're going to be given today is going to serve as your ticket for lunch. So as you're given that, I ask that you fill it out, and then when you turn that in at lunchtime, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Brent Sellers. He's a Yankee like myself. He grew up in a spot, though, that I just say it because they're going to know here shortly, Brent. But I look at him and I said, you know, there are different places where you have different types of credibility, and Dr. Sellers is one of the few people I've ever met that back in his hometown, he was on the front page of the paper. His mother had saved him from a rogue sow at the ripe old age of 3 or 4 years old. And I said, you know your country when you make the front page of the paper that Mama saved you from a rogue sow. So I know Dr. Sellers. Other than that, he has been at the Owner Research Center, the range center there. Dr. Sellers has a doctorate from University of Missouri. He has his master's from Purdue University, and his BS also came from Purdue. This format today is going to be, as you can see, fairly small. I encourage you to talk openly with Dr. Sellers when he has something. The worst thing that could happen at this is that you'd have a question and not ask. That today is really about giving producers a chance to interact with Dr. Sellers and see what he has to say about the different challenges we're going to face. So, no more of me, Dr. Sellers.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I'll have to come up with some more embarrassing stories. The reason he knows about that is when I was at my dad's in August, they reran that story back in 1973 in our home paper when I was home. So that was pretty cool to see that, even though it was traumatizing at the time. Well, good morning, and like Aaron said, I would rather you guys ask me questions than me stand up here and talk the whole time. So if you do have a question, don't hesitate to stop me. If you feel like I've left something out, or if you have a question about a particular slide, I will back up and go through that as well. So, what I want to do today is I'm going to act like you don't know anything about herbicides at all. Go through the basic herbicides we have available for pastures, and talk a little bit of why we control weeds, and then go into some forage establishment work, and then forage tolerance, and then I'll touch on some of the key weeds that we have, and end with a slide on wipers that seems to be getting a little more popular in the last year. The book I handed you, or you got this morning, has all my slides in it. And then I printed out almost every fact sheet we've put together on pastures, weeds. So this is almost everything that we've produced in the 10 years that we've been here. So if you have a friend that would like one, we'll have extra copies at the end of the day. All right, so several herbicides, about 12 active ingredients, ranging from 2,4-D, which is one of the oldest ones. Let's see if I can get this pointer to work without advancing my slides. There we go. Dicamba, Weedmaster, very popular. I'm going to struggle with this. And then, several others, along with the newer ones, Milestone, Pasture, Grazing Systems. Velpar's been around for a long time. Tellar we don't hear much about. Very small spectrum of weeds that it controls. Outrider for watergrass, Pasture, which is fairly new, which contains a grass herbicide as well as a broadleaf herbicide in it. And then Vista. Notice Clean Wave's not on this list. Clean Wave went off the market a year ago. And now we're back to Vista. And I'm going to show a herbicide in the pasture called Trump Card that is a mixture of Vista and 2,4-D that is going to be sold by Helena Chemical. Along with those, we have some new herbicides coming. DuPont is currently seeking registration for an active called aminocyclopyrachlor. It will not be sold by itself in pastures. It's more likely going to be a premix with either metsulfuron, triclopyr 2,4-D, or chlorsulfuron. They're also looking at some other combinations as well. I don't know how far out those are going to be coming, but those 4 herbicides will be out in the next 2 years, we hope. And currently the EPA is supposed to rule on this active this week. So hopefully we'll hear something soon. And we'll be showing you Invora and Kendra in the field as well. All right, so real quickly, I'll go through each one of the actives just to give you a little bit of background on them. 2,4-D has been around since the 40s, right? This is getting a lot of press recently because of the new crop genetics they're producing in the Midwest. The Enlist crops you may have heard of. This has been on Dr. Oz, if you watch Dr. Oz. I don't know why you would, but if you do, I mean, this has been on there because he thinks that 2,4-D is Agent Orange. 2,4-D is not Agent Orange. Agent Orange was 2,4,5-T in 2,4-D. Okay, so that's the big difference. So you hear somebody talk about Agent Orange, and it's the new Enlist cropping systems. This is not Agent Orange. Okay. Use rates 1 to 4 pints per acre. It's really a fairly good herbicide. Still has viable use today. Pretty weak on our woody species, except for a couple. It's good on young dog fennel, less than 10 inches tall. And right now, until the new cropping systems get going in the Midwest, it really is our cheapest herbicide we have on the market. Almost. Dicamba, this is used primarily in limpo grass pastures. Again, it's not used as much as 2,4-D. Use rates 1.5 to 2 pints per acre. Good sedge control or water grass at planting. If it's applied 7 to 10 days after planting, I'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. It is more expensive than 2,4-D and Graze Next, but it has declined in recent years. And one of my cooperators I've worked with has said that it's almost gotten as low as Weedmaster in some cases. So whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. Dicamba 2,4-D, this is Weedmaster, Rifle D, so on and so forth. This was probably the most popular herbicide before Grazing Next and Forefront came to market. Very good on a variety of weeds, dog fennel less than 36 inches. And then for Bermuda grass and stargrass, this would be the herbicide to apply 7 to 10 days after planting to prevent sedges and watergrass from coming in. Okay, Grazing Next HO, this is one of our newest ones. This is Milestone plus 2,4-D. Use rate used to be 2.1 to 2.6, but since they reformulated it into the high load formulation, that's what the HL stands for, the use rate dropped to 1.6 to 2.1 pints per acre. Most people are going out with 24 ounces, a pint and a half. Okay, so it's pretty similar to Milestone, except that we get the advantage of controlling small dog fennel with that addition of 2,4-D. But once the dog fennel gets above 16 inches tall, you really need to add something else to this, and we'll cover that in a little bit as well. Okay, Pasture Guard. This is a fairly recent one as well. It came out about the same time as Grazing Next and Forefront did. Again, this was now it's a high load formulation, so if you see Pasture Guard by itself without HL behind it, you have to double the rates. So instead, that would be 2 to 4 pints per acre. I call this my go-to product for dog fennel control, especially the ones that are this tall. I mean, if you waited this long, this is the herbicide of choice. Triclopyr, or Remedy Ultra, there are some generics of this as well. Our use rate is 1 to 2 pints per acre. This is our woody species product, so wax myrtle, blackberry as well. Metsulfuron, this used to be called Ally or Cimarron a few years ago. Now it has gone generic, and there are so many different brand names for this, I can't even keep them all straight. So you might see Metsulfuron 60DF, you might see Clear Pasture, so on and so forth. But this is also a very good broadleaf weed herbicide, but it does miss our 2 most important weeds, dog fennel and soda apple. It will kill legume species, and it's fairly good on suppressing Pensacola bahia grass. Okay? This product is actually touted for controlling bahia grass and Bermuda grass and stargrass pastures. This is about the best I can get with this product. About 95 to 99% control. You come back the next growing season, most of the time the bahia grasses come back. So it's really difficult to control with the Metsulfuron. Glyphosate, Roundup, Touchdown, use rate's a half of a pint to 8 pints per acre. So you're using this 8 pint per acre rate for renovation, the 8 to 16 ounces, or a half pint to a pint, for selective control of grass weeds and Bermuda grass and stargrass right after clipping. So right after you get the hay off the field, go out there and spray the 8 to 16 ounces of glyphosate, and it cleans it up pretty good. Okay, Milestone, which is aminopyrrolate. I talk about this because this is a component of Grazing XHL. Use rate's 3 to 7 ounces per acre. Very good on tropical soda apple. If you want to keep the legume, this is not something you want to apply. But pretty poor on dog fennel. We thought initially when we looked at this, the dog fennel, because it actually did wilt like it normally does with 2,4-D or Weedmaster. We went back a week later and you could see the dog fennel starting to turn back upward. So they were growing out of it. Velpar, this is our smut grass control product. It does kill a lot of other weeds as well, including dog fennel. Use rate's 1 to 2 quarts per acre. I'm going to show this today, and I'm going to go through some slides later because we did some work on this a few years ago. This is very lethal to oaks, but I know in some situations that people have sprayed right up next to an oak tree and have had no problems. But I know I have killed an oak tree. So, okay. Telar is chlorsulfuron. The use rate is a half to 1 ounce per acre. This one is actually pretty good on blackberry and pigweed, but that's about it. There's not much else this product controls. At least that we're concerned about. Outrider is sulfuron. We use this for annual and perennial sedge control at 1 to 1 1/3 ounces per acre. And then Pastora is Metsulfuron. We talked about that a few minutes ago, controlling a number of broadleaf weed species. And then this one called Nicosulfuron, that is the grass herbicide. This was actually used in the Midwest for weed control in corn, grass weed control in corn. They brought it to the pasture market about 4 years ago. Use rates 1 to 1.5 ounces per acre. It does provide good control of annual grasses and Johnson grass. It's okay on basic grass, not great. Normally you need 1.5 ounces followed by another ounce to pick up the Basie grass. And one thing I want to point out is the Johnson grass they're referring to on the label is not the Johnson grass that a lot of people refer to in South Florida. What they're calling Johnson grass in South Florida is usually guinea grass. And if you go out there spraying this herbicide hoping you're going to kill that guinea grass, you're in for a lot of disappointment, because Outrider or Pasture has no effect on guinea grass.